Incorporated, which is a Houston nonprofit and community organization. I'm also the tutoring services coordinator at Prairie View A&M University. So that's my day job outside of the community work that I do. And I'll let Luis introduce himself here as well, and then we'll tell you about our project. Brother Luis.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luis Duno-Gottberg. I'm a professor of Caribbean Studies and Visual Culture at Rice University. And my areas of expertise are race relations in the Caribbean and politics and violence. So I work mostly on the Spanish and a little bit of the French Caribbean. But that experience, that scholarly work led me to an interest on finding ways of sharing or deploying my experience, my theoretical background with a community. So it would be my first experience of this kind. And this project aims at kind of transferring some of that knowledge into a different space and to share with a different constituency and community with a very direct and transparent political aim, I would say. And coming from Latin America, the word politics is not a bad word.
Absolutely. So just a kind of a brief background on how Luis and I met and how we got started on this project. I work with an organization also called 100 Black Men of America, the Houston chapter, Metropolitan Houston. And we do mentoring generally for young Black males, but we also do a lot of community work. And I brought Luis in because we have a program called 100 Links to Africa, where we look at the African diaspora, and we do this during Black History Month. And we look to introduce people in our community, anyone who's interested, into the history and culture of countries within the African diaspora. And so last year, 2019, we focused on Haiti. And as you heard Luis mention, he's an expert, a noted scholar on the Caribbean. So we brought him in to talk about the history and culture of Haiti. We had some other people speak and communicate. We had food, dance, all those different kinds of things. And that went, very, very well. And I met Luis. He's a great guy. He met people involved with, my organization and things like that. And we kind of parted ways and we kind of communicated, periodically. But maybe a few months ago, Luis reached out to me and he let me know that he really had some concerns about what was going on in the community. And was there a way that we could work together to look at fostering and making some connections between Black and Brown communities? And I was all for it. And you heard Luis just mention, of all the great scholarly work he has done and that he does do, he's looking at also trying to get more hands-on and do things in the community. And if you guys know anything about Houston, it's one of the most diverse cities in the United States. Spanish spoken everywhere here, along with many other languages, including my own, English. So we put this project together. And I have my personal organization outside of 100 Black Men is P.O.W.E.R, which is about reading, media literacy, digital citizenship, academic achievement, and really trying to get people in the community more involved in reading. So that was a natural fit to use that organization to work with Luis in the areas that he's interested and involved with, trying to create political action, leadership in the community, and inform people about their backgrounds and make those collaborative experiences between these two groups. So we worked together and we talked about the fact that it's probably best to start with younger groups. So we created something called the Houston Youth P.O.W.E.R, P-O-W-E-R research project. And the P.O.W.E.R part stands for Project on Organizing, Writing, Editing, and Reporting. And for the first project that we're gonna do with this, and of course, COVID's kind of slowed us down, obviously, but the first thing that we wanna do is look at making Black and Brown alliances between the youth, getting them to learn about their communities and their background, and how in the past, Brown communities and Black communities like my own have worked together to solve problems and to have community action. And so we've got some different methods and things that we want to use to do that. But that just kind of gives you a background of kind of where we were. And I'll let Luis kind of get into some of the research aspects and some other things about what we've been talking about and doing. Brother Luis.
So basically the framework for the project draws from the notions of engaged research or action research. And the idea was to provide young students of Latino, Latinx, Latin American sometimes, because sometimes it's first generation, and Black students, the tools to develop scientific inquiry that aims at affecting their communities. Of course, ideally in this kind of methodology, you let the questions emerge from the community itself. And to be absolutely honest, it's not as open as that. We're going to provide a framework that is more or less defined, which is let's explore not only the experiences of oppression that Latinos and Black communities have experienced, but let's also see the local histories of alliances. So within that framework, we'll encourage them to ask questions. We'll provide them with tools to do the research. And ideally, at the end of this project, we'll come up with a product that Jay in a minute. The other idea that we have in mind is that these young students will be instructing other students on how to do this. So this is multifaceted in the sense that they will develop research tools that will help them in their professional life, but they will also help them to understand their local histories and also develop connections in the communities across the Black and Brown communities that paradoxically have experienced the same forms of oppression, but not always have developed the strongest links that we would like to see, given the shared history of oppression. James.
Yeah. So we're going to look at media representations of Latino, Latinx, Hispanic, Latin American, African American, and things like that. Have them be able to develop those research skills and tools like Luis mentioned. Go back and explore your past history. Why have there been problems in our communities? You know, from the outside, inside, whatever the case may be. And Luis and I know about some of these instances and issues, but we want to teach the young people to go out and find their own truths and their own histories, and then make their own decisions, and then use those skills and those tools to bring it back, like Luis said, to their schools and their communities, and try to affect some change. So we're trying to help create some future leaders as well. So there are some political kind of motivations there, wrapped in skill development. And so we're kind of really excited about that. Houston has multiple school districts, many school districts. It's a huge area. Of course, as you all know, it's one of the top 5 cities in the United States in terms of population. So we have some connections in the HISD, Houston Independent School Districts, which is one of the largest districts in the country. And then there's a lot of the neighboring districts around. We're going to seek out and have like a invitation and an application process to find about 10 students that can join our team. And we're going to work at Rice, use some of the resources there. And I've got some of my own students from Prairie View and some other groups that I work with that we're going to have involved, and they're going to kind of be student leaders and mentors to the younger students. And then they're going to use those research skills to develop podcasts, do presentations, and so I was just reading from Nolan. I'm sorry. Podcasts, presentations, and also eventually be able to share it more out there in the community. Now we're going to open it up to for questions, and we can talk more in-depthly about some of these things that you all want to know about. I don't want to take up a lot of time with that, but we're in the very beginning stages of this. COVID really slowed us down because we were thinking we were going to be able to work with students face-to-face. Obviously, it's a little more difficult to do that now. So we're still kind of in the the kind of planning stages and the ideal stages with all that. But we would love to get some feedback from you all here as well. If y'all have any ideas or things like that, or any questions. And also, if any of you all are interested in helping out or being involved, maybe being speakers since we're on Zoom, or using any of your skills to participate in our program, that would be awesome. As you can probably tell, Luis and I are very excited about this. I mean, this is some great work for us, and it's very personal for us. And You know, I was so happy and proud that he thought of me when he wanted to come and do this. And he and I are almost like Batman and Robin or Captain America and Iron Man. We kind of have our different skills and we kind of come together, and we think it's a really great team. I don't want to keep talking because I could probably talk forever on this, but I'm gonna give Luis a chance to say some things, and then I guess we can open up, Nolan, if people have questions. Luis, any more?
Yeah, I just have like another minute for you guys, and then we'll throw it over to Mary.
Okay.
I will take that minute just to go back to issues of methodology quickly, because to me there was, just to share, a concern that I had at some point was this contradiction between the fact that we want to frame the conversation with the purpose of developing not only professional skills, academic skills in this population, but also motivate them to use those skills to mobilize against the realities of exclusion and racial oppression. So the fact that there is that aim and that framing seemingly contradicts this notion that questions should emerge from the base up. So from the startup, I would like to put on the table that we acknowledge that tension there. The best way I can answer to that conflict within the methodology is to say that yes, that there's a problem there in the framing that is more or less fairly structured. I think in conversations with the students, with the stakeholders, they will be able to bring about their own concerns, their own needs, which we don't fully know, right? Looking after this of resistance and alliances, and those things we do not know. So we hope that will motivate and would create the investment of the students in these stories. So with that in mind, that's my last comment.
Carrie?
Thanks, Nolan. I am so inspired by your projects, James and Louis. I can't wait to talk more about it. I also work with youth media, which that's not what this project is about that we're about to talk about with Oscar and I, but it's very near and dear to my heart. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Grueser. Oscar and I are coming to you from New York City. We're also coming to you both from a documentary filmmaker's perspective on media literacy. So that's a lot of this is kind of like very focused in how to use documentary filmmaking and media literacy projects. I'll tell you a little bit about my background, and then I'm going to hand it over to Oscar. He's going to tell you a little about himself before we get started. So I'm a part-time faculty member of Hunter College, and I teach in the film and media department. But I'm also, I spend most of my time as a program director with Educational Video Center, working with youth media and doing documentary filmmaking. And I, on my spare time, try to do a little bit of my own grassroots media work. And so that's where Oscar and I converge, as we've worked on some projects together. Although this presentation is slightly separate. I'm going to be talking more about theory that I've been researching connected to critical media literacy in film, and Oscar's going to show you the work he's been doing. So Oscar, you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everyone. Oscar Fraser. It's an honor to be with you, listening to these wonderful projects and ideas. I'm more of a practitioner. I go on the field and do stuff. In this case, I have been doing a project in Times Square. This is prior to the pandemic. And I spotted different, you know what, let me just give you more of my background. Sorry, I'm jumping into the project. I'm a photographer, filmmaker. I'm teaching presently in different institutions here in New York. I teach at FIT, the New School, and at Columbia. I range into different type of classes. I do production, I do multimedia, and I do visual storytelling. So juggling all these different areas of media, I decided I came across on an article written by Jason, and I got very motivated to go and map an area that I felt it needed some attention. This was is a Times Square unintended. So I kind of mapped the people that shouldn't be there, but they are there, which is all these characters that work for tips representing different characters from the American culture. Most of them are immigrants, most of them are undocumented workers. So there's where I focus my attention, and I created this map that uses analog and digital technologies to expose the tourists to the human aspect of these characters that normally gets overseen in the process of you doing tourism and just catching a photograph with many of these characters, Superman, the Statue of Liberty, and so on. So I decided to zoom in into the human stories. I created these QR codes for each of these individuals that you can, with your phone, scan on a map, and then suddenly you get into individual stories of, human stories that get overlooked. So my intention at the end will be that these maps will be given to the hotels, to the multiple venues that the tourists have in Times Square, and suddenly they have another alternative to browse through Times Square. Now, it's a multi-layer project, the same thing that most of you encountering problems with COVID. It slows me down. It did slow me down in the process, but I'm able to right now to present in this conference part of that work, and I think it's a beautiful. The stories that are in there that I wanted to share with you. So that's more or less my background and what I'm doing with this project. Back to Mary.
So I'm going to share some slides with you all just really quickly. This represents the work that Oscar and I are both doing together, just how our field work is informed. And especially working with either immigrants or young people, it feels like in our research, there's been 4 decolonizing practices that either organizations or a lot of groups use together. So critical pedagogy, Freirean critical pedagogy, popular education, community media organizing, and citizen journalism. And just kind of getting a historical context, again, we're studying kind of the filmmaking aspect. So we went back to the roots of Prairie and pedagogy of the oppressed, and actually through our research realized that that was written, often people consider in response to Frantz Fanon's Wretched of the Earth, which is a Bible for socialist movements, and also the inspiration for the Third Cinema movement, which is a component that, a film component that accompanied several social revolutions in Latin America, Argentina and Cuba especially. So in the presentation, we talk a little bit about Towards the Third Cinema Manifesto, written by Fernando Solanas and Octavio Getino, which informed a lot of socialist movement work, especially connected to documentary filmmaking. And then just breaking down the acts of these 4 pillars when you're doing work with communities and young people, including critical pedagogies, so horizontal learning and student-teacher relationship, popular education, making sure that our students are the experts or the people that we're working with in communities are the experts of their own experiences, and it's informing the work. Community media organizing, so taking that a step further and thinking about how folks can change their situations and be agents of their own change. And then citizen journalism, so democratizing journalism approaches and taking that social change agent to a new level. A couple of organizations that have inspired us, aside from, of course, the one that I work for, Educational Video Center. These are long-standing organizations that were also born in parallel with the Third Cinema movement happening in the 60s. So Bay Area Video Coalition in San Francisco, Carton Kim in Chicago, Apple Shop in Kentucky, and Downtown Community Television in New York City. And they're all doing work for over 5 generations, over 5 decades, sorry. And so that's incredible, especially, you know, all of you working in the field know how hard it is to keep projects going. So I feel like there's a lot to learn there. And I'm gonna stop sharing. It's a quote from Frary that you'll see in the presentation. But so that's just a little bit of the frameworks and the theories that have informed how Oscar and I do our work in the field. And then in the presentation, you'll see a short film. It's an example of the Q.E.R. project that Oscar's made. And I'm not sure if we have time to, it's like a 3-minute film. How are we doing on time, Nolan?
I have about 3 minutes, so go for it.
Okay, so Oscar's gonna show you all a clip of the film from the presentation.
Okay, so let's see, QuickTime Player.
For this project, I wanted to mix analog media with digital media. I made an analog map of Times Square featuring QR codes that people can scan, and it will launch a short video portrait of one of the performing artist's characters. So tourists who typically use commercial maps to navigate Times Square can alternatively use this map to understand the invisible or unseen aspects of Times Square. The initial intention was to print those maps and distribute them in hotels and gift shops so the tourists could use them to get to know Times Square at a more human level. Here's an example of one of the several stories on the Q.E.R. map. Meet Omar.
Yo tengo 55 años y los cumplí hace un día. Soy padre de 6 hijos. En este momento respondo por 4 que están estudiando, 2 están en la universidad. Y una niña que la tengo en la clínica de cáncer. Están todos en Colombia, yo acá vivo solo, vivo en el Bronx. Mi familia es grande, para mantener mi familia y para mantenerme aquí. Nueva York es caro. En renta, alimentación, tu vestimenta, tienes que pagar impuestos para poder ser alguien aquí, que te tengan en cuenta tienes que pagar impuestos. Yo pido este trabajo aquí afuera, aquí en la calle, y el personaje que yo hago, porque aquí es donde sale el sustento para mi familia. Pero por 10 años he sido siempre el personaje de la Estatua de la Libertad. Si en nuestros países hubiera más oportunidades, una mejor estructura de los gobiernos, no hubiera malicia, no hubiera engaño con el pueblo, con la gente que la engañan, la gente no emigraría. Pero en mi país las oportunidades son muy pocas. ¿Por qué en Colombia el estudio para las personas, por qué tiene que costar tanto para que una persona pueda estudiar, pueda prepararse para el futuro? El que tiene su casa, el que tiene su buen empleo, el que tiene su negocio, que tiene una buena familia, que tiene una buena estructura familiar porque le dieron oportunidades, esa persona se regresa. Porque ellos sí tienen, les han dado la oportunidad. Más que todo son personas que son familias de los mismos gobiernos de los países. Porque si hubieran oportunidades en nuestros países, la gente no emigraría tanto, sino que en nuestros países no hay sino oportunidades para unos cuantos. El que vive bien, digamos en Colombia, en Ecuador, en México, viene a este país solo a pasear y a hacer negocio y luego se regresa por 2, 3, 4 días. Pero el que vive mal, quedan porque dicen aquí estoy mejor que mi país y se quedan.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. We will now turn over to Lauren.
Wow, make me follow that. That was incredible. Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. It's that like I need a couple minutes to process all of that. That Mary and Oscar, that's fantastic. Gosh, I have so many questions. I'm gonna try to transition as gracefully as I can. I'm gonna put the link to my Bellingham Youth Media Project website in the chat. And let's see if I can figure out how to do that and talk at the same time. And so let me introduce myself. I'm Lauren McClanahan, joining you from foggy, cold Bellingham, Washington. We are right just south of Vancouver, BC. So Canada is so close yet so far away. These days, it's so tempting sometimes to just go look at the border. But in Bellingham, I am a professor of secondary education at Western Washington University. And I've been there for about 20 years, working with content area literacy, critical literacies, and more recently in the past 5 years or so, critical media literacy. And the Bellingham Youth Media Project is a nonprofit that I started back in 2017, in which I work closely with teachers in the K-12 system here in Bellingham to encourage them to have their students use film and photography in their classrooms, no matter what the content area is. And mostly I work with language arts, social studies teachers, mostly with middle school. It seems like middle school teachers are the most open to scrapping the traditional language arts curriculum and being brave enough to try something different. So typically what we do, you know, I'm hearing this theme of COVID has disrupted everything, and I'm nodding. Yeah, it totally has disrupted what I do with Bellingham Youth Media Project also. I'm gonna share my screen for just a moment as well, if I can do that. And I'm landing on the explainer page of the website. But what I want to draw your attention to is the student productions. And boy, Mary and Oscar, your work is so intriguing to me because my students do documentary filmmaking too. And in 2019, we put on a big film festival, and over 400 parents and community members attended, and it was outstanding. And the seventh graders, these were seventh graders, they were charged with creating films about topics that were important to them personally. And so we got topics such as climate change, same-sex marriage, bullying, immigration, anxiety and depression, divorce, self-efficacy. These films that these students created was they were phenomenal. And so we were at it again in 2020. And then of course, COVID. So we had to shift, and we created a compilation. It was like a 20-minute compilation. We called it a virtually viral media festival, where students submitted projects from home, and we made it work. It wasn't the same as being in the theater enjoying their work together. So then in the summer, I was planning on doing another workshop with a face-to-face workshop with students. But again, you know, we had to pivot and decide how to make this work online. So what the workshop was about was asking students to create public service announcements, again, about topics that they cared about. And my teaching partner and I, who happened to be one of my former students at Western, and she's now working, I feel I'm like a proud parent of so many of my students who've been out teaching in the community, you know, for over a decade. We created a curriculum that had students really critically look at media messages. And we looked at things like advertisements, political advertisements, signage that you see on buses, signage that you see on billboards. And we invited them to really critically engage with those visual texts and then take the skills that they learned and create a PSA about a topic that they cared about. And so we gave them two choices. Since this had to be done over Zoom, it was a little bit, the engagement piece was not what I would have normally liked to have had with middle school, early high school students. But I think we did a pretty good job of analyzing pieces together, talking about community issues together, and then supporting one another through tools like Padlet to do peer feedback. We would have discussion boards. We would use different Google Forms, you know, different online tools. And so what we got in the end were some PSAs about there's LGBTQ rights, unequal opportunities in education. One student decided to do the NBA versus the WNBA and the inequities that he found there. Microaggressions were one of the products. Self-care in times of COVID. Climate change, illiteracy, mail-in versus poll voting. This student compared a county here in Washington State and a county in Texas, and just did some comparing and contrasting of what he found there. And then two students decided to make videos, one about voter suppression, and she chose to use Animaker, which is a free animation software tool. And then another student who's super into drama, he made his own short documentary about gun violence in schools. And it's quite dramatic. He's a little actor, but so these products then were shared on a community night. We invited people via Zoom to come, and we had the students create a little introduction to their pieces, and then they showed their pieces, and then they were open for questions about what they learned during this workshop. And throughout the workshop, we used, let me see if I can find it here. We were working, and I can put this in the chat as well. We were working off of this lesson plan, and along the way, we had different graphic organizers. We talked about defining what social justice meant. We gave examples of PSA videos, some student made, some professional made. We analyzed, using critical literacy, we analyzed photos and videos. We created a, let me see if I can find it here. Oh, I think it's on my desktop. Let me show you real quickly. This infographic about the 3 C's to try to help kids to not judge something so quickly when they see it, but to slow down. Let's take a look at the craft first. What medium is this message being produced in? Then taking a look like objectively at the content, not snapping to judgment so quick, but slow down and objectively look at the content. And for example, we said an objective statement would be Seattle is in Washington State. Not objective, Seattle is the best city in the US. You know, so getting students to think in these terms, and then asking some more critical questions. And this is so easy to do with advertisements, especially, you know, who or what has the power in this situation? What kind of roles do characters have? How do their identities determine those roles, etc. So we used all these kinds of tools, and here I'll share this link in case anybody's just interested in seeing some of the examples that we used in our workshop. Let me see if I can put this in the chat while I'm sharing my screen. Oh, let me see. Boom, there it is. I think I did that. The next workshop starts tomorrow. It is about, here, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. It's about, no, I'm not. I'm going to share my screen one more time. I want to show you the poster that we made. Sorry, it's not as slick as it could be, but it's the Scare Flick Project. And what we're going to ask students to do, again, all over Zoom, is to critically analyze horror films. And what do horror films tell us about what we fear as individuals, as a society? And then we're going to ask them to remake a scene from a horror film and make it maybe a little bit more, I don't know, critically sensitive. I don't know if that's even a term, but we're going to ask them to redesign a movie scene and film it themselves with their friends. So this starts on Monday. I don't know, fingers crossed. So that's all. That's what I have to share with everybody.
Okay. Thank you very much. And as a big horror film fan, I definitely want to talk a little more about that in the Q&A. But I'll throw it over to Elaine right now. Elaine, you have to unmute. Elaine, you still have to unmute.
Talk about forgetting square one. I'm Elaine Parke. I have an MBA in marketing, and I've spent more than 45 years half in corporate marketing and advertising, and half, as I've said in my program, in developing a model for undoing the damage I did during my corporate career. In that second half, because of my natural knowledge of media, I have informally done many media literacy programs in the schools and environments where I've found myself over the years, probably 100 to 150 schools and communities throughout the Midwest. But a long time ago, I came to the conclusion that we needed to use the very powerful tools that corporations and politicians use for profits and their own gain, and use those tools to create positive media to develop social justice and positive ideals among people across schools, communities, the United States and beyond. So when this conference came along, I've already been doing what I call, a proactive, large-scale proactive response to the problems in media. And if any of you have recently seen the Netflix series, The Media Dilemma, at least in my opinion, we're sort of far beyond the ability to combat the terrible influence media is having on the world by defending ourselves against it. We need to use their tools the same way they're using them, only using them in order to promote good. So let me see whether I haven't tried this. So if you guys will bear with me, I'll see if I can. Has anyone on the screen seen my program? It's called Positive Media Matters. Okay. Share my screen. Well, that's not my screen. Let's see. I have my screen up here, but I don't know how to get it to show.
Elaine, in the middle of your screen, there should be at the bottom of Zoom, there should be a green share screen button.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do. And I've got what I want to come up, but it's, oh, here. Well, maybe this will work.
There you go.
So is my program on the screen now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so except I can't see it, so I don't know where I am. Does it say a golden media revolution?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you have the wrong window because it's a YouTube window. You're looking for a presentation, right?
This is the presentation right here.
Ah, okay.
So
Okay.
I could play it, but that'll take 18 minutes. I don't really want to do
No,
that.
Elaine, just go ahead and tell them everything.
So maybe this is as good a screen as any. So what we've been doing for the last 30 years, what we've done is use the same media tools that huge corporations from Coca-Cola to whatever use, but use these same tools to create a local, statewide, national, and someday international campaign to promote 12 ideals that are all neutral bias. In 30 years of doing this in more than 100 communities and over 1 million people, no one has had a problem with lend a hand or you count or resolve conflicts. Everyone agrees with these 12 values. And so we've done something never done before, which is that we've discovered that the 12 months of the year exist all over the world in every language, but no one's ever made them a brand name for anything. So our model has actually taken the months of the year and turned them into brand names for one of these 12 ideals of social justice and democracy and living in a world for getting along better. Over those 30 years that we've been in all these communities, we've had about 9 major studies. One of the biggest studies was by the University of Pittsburgh Graduate School of Public Health. Probably my favorite moment from all the studies over all these years was a student who said, after spending 2 years in the 12 habits environment, I'm now nice to people I used to be mean to. I might even get better grades too. That's more powerful than any statistic that you can come up with. So in a typical community where this is going on, and I don't know, see if you go all the way to the end so you can kind of get a picture of it. So these are the
of positive ideals.
Whoops,
that fill the media.
I don't want to do that. Hang on a second, guys. So let me go. So this is what a community doing this looks like. Gonna come up. Just a second. Maybe not. It's going to go all the way to the end so you could actually see some pictures of it. Here, let's see if we'll let this frame in. So what we have been doing is for the last 30 years, we've been in hundreds of communities throughout the Midwest and through Rotary in the country of Rwanda. They invited us into Rwanda because, of course, they wanted their young people to grow up never having a genocide again. And through these 12, as schools and people and communities go through these 12 months, each observing the habits for lend a hand, do your best, be appreciative, they're sort of all inclusive. Some of them are about self-esteem and self-empowerment. Needless to say, April is about the environment, something we all care about. March is Resolve Conflicts. My dream is that someday March will be International Resolve Conflicts Month. My main dream is that this model will grow and live far beyond my lifetime. As long as the 12 months of the year exist as nomenclature for defining the 12-month periods that we divide the year into, this model could continue to grow and attract participation and involvement and build positive, healthy ideals among a population as small as a family and as large as the world. So this is what we've been doing. Carrie, Lynn, you want to hop in and cover all the things that I didn't say properly?
Sure. Yeah.
If this would load in, you could get a clear picture, just some photographs.
That's okay.
There's a cake that says,
I'm not that patient.
Okay, my screen,
yeah.
My screen has jumped off, so go ahead, Carrie Lynn.
Nolan, is there something that I pushed to put me up or no?
You mean to share your screen?
So if I talk, do I come up on the video? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mary. Awesome. I'm Carrie Lynn Leonard. My expertise is in strategic organizational communication, barriers, and support. So when I was formally doing my studies for that, I stumbled across Elaine Parke. And one of the things that I found amazing about what she was doing is she was taking marketing and flooding an entire community or at times an organization with communication. And one of the things that I was always intrigued by is following it, seeing how successful or unsuccessful it was. It is a way for me to see things systematically, and I get to play with that, but in a good way and supporting good things. So I've hooked up with Elaine and her work, oh geez, I don't know, the last 4 or 5 years, and have been a part of this amazing machine, and seeing all this grassroots community change. So it's very simple, it's very grassroots, but the protocol is incredibly powerful, and it flip-flops media into a positive, into a very extremely community and pro-social positive way. So yeah, we've been hitting the ground and hitting the pavement doing this for years. And we love to see it grow, and it just has a life of its own, because the consumer of the brand is who has the power in this protocol, and they end up becoming like social agents, social activists at the grassroots level, regardless of the organization in the community that they happen to be in. So it's a really interesting dynamic seeing this stuff take place. That's
Any
me.
questions?
Thank you very much. And please, I know you guys have already started, but show all the panelists some love in the chat for sure. And if anybody wants to ask him a question, now would be the time. Cheryl asks, how does the protocol actually work?
Elaine, is that you? Yeah.
Yep. The protocol, obviously, because it's based on the months, it moves itself forward automatically. In other words, the first of each month defines the moment when the protocol for the next habit or the next ideal begins. So 1st of January begins the protocol for lend a hand. And so during that time, let's say in a community, and in the schools, there are posters, there are morning announcements, the PSAs on local radio and television. In Pittsburgh, KDKA TV actually did PSAs on this protocol for 2.5 years, 30-second PSAs, each month changing according to the month. Social media, people are encouraged to post examples of things they've done to do their best, if that's September, or it just grows. In one of our recent communities, a dentist puts posters over his dental patients' chairs with the monthly habit on it. So while they're sitting there getting their teeth filled, they're looking up at lend a hand or do your best or whatever the positive protocol is. As I said, if any of you have seen the recent Netflix series, The Media Dilemma, you know, the power of the negativity of it has just gotten so far beyond teaching media literacy. We have to be proactive. We have to use their tools, which is a systemized, organized media campaign like any big corporation would do, but use it proactively. We've done it before. Wonderful public service campaigns have been very successful. Don't drink and drive. You know, give a hoot, don't pollute. So this is similar, only the what's being promoted is literally 12 clear, unbiased, basic core values that help people cooperate together better in a democracy.
Louis, good.
Yeah, I have a question. Carrie Lynn was mentioning at the end of her intervention that this platform, this protocol, something that she liked about this protocol was that it made the users have a greater buy-in, that they would be more involved beyond the particular organization that they were working with. What is it about the protocol? What are the aspects of this protocol that allow that create that investment of the user in that platform? What?
Yeah, part of the, when you're looking at communication and organized communication systems, you're looking at barriers and support. So when you go down to the ground level into the, at the ground level of the consumer, that's your final ground level, and you have to look at engaging them instead of allowing them to create barriers. You want them to engage in a supportive manner. So if you put whatever the brand is, so for example, this month is be patient, all right? All month long, they're in a community. If they go to the store, they're seeing be patient. If they're a member of our Facebook page, they're seeing be patient. The children are seeing at school. It's in the restaurants. These messages, these brands are all over the community. Sometimes they're at the city level, at the state level. So they're seeing media in that way. And then we have this thing going on in tandem where the consumer engages that message. So now they become the activists of Be Patient, and we advertise their excellence through the protocol. So whatever they're doing to model or promote or whatever the brand, now it's at the consumer level and they become the activists and we step back. So the brand actually takes over.
Thank you.
I would just will add, if you weren't able to see the talk, Positive Media Matters, it's worth the 18 minutes. I didn't go the whole 30, and it actually runs through the methodologies, the systemic methodologies that Dr. Leonard is referring to, that are used by the big corporations and politicians that want to influence us, but are not being used by the people that want to make the world better for the most part. So if you have a chance to look at it, I would encourage it, and go to our website. You can actually just start being more patient and listening better this month of October yourself, because the protocol is all there. So it's www.12habitsforallofus.org. So come along for a ride. It's wonderful.
That's a good reminder. If either of you can put that in the chat, that'd be great. I should say that there's a lot of links in the chat. I also put all the videos from the presenters in the chat. But once the call closes, the chat is lost. So if you want to keep any of those links, make sure you keep a copy for yourself. There's a ton of stuff in there from the panelists. We have a couple minutes left. If there's a final question anybody wants to ask.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I'm so sad that this conference didn't happen in person because this was going to be in Columbus, Ohio, right?
This one's was going to be in Hayward,
Or-
California.
Oh no, oh, I'm thinking of a different one. So many conferences have been moved online and I'm from Columbus and I was so excited to go and I was like, dang it. But I'm glad that you all figured out this format. This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's you know, we've been pretty happy with it. We really hope that we all get together and are able to see each other face to face and share a cocktail together next year. We'll see. Good. Any other questions from folks? Oh, Luis, good.
I'm sorry, I'm talking so much, but just a comment, not a question, but to Mary and Oscar, that I really appreciate the fact that a project on decoloniality and so forth actually uses theory from the global South. You know, not only for political reasons, but it also signals students that there is thought, the critical thought being produced elsewhere. So you're showing it within your own framework of work. So that's very powerful to tell them that you can think with other tools too. So applaud that.
Yes,
Thanks,
I would agree.
Louise. Go ahead.
Okay, well, it's this is the end of our session. As I mentioned to you guys at the beginning, there's a closing reflection circle led by Jeff and Elena that I highly encourage folks to attend. It's been great seeing you all, and as Lauren kind of alluded to earlier, I hope we get to see you all face to face next year. But thank you all very much, and again, give our some panelists some love as we end this our session. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Pleasure
everyone.
meeting you all. Thank you.
Great to meet you all too.
Bye.